So there we go. Okay. So welcome to the 2022 season of Our Community Reads. This is our 5th year, I'm happy to say. The last one and this one as well have been a bit challenging, but we're trudging ahead. We're really thankful that you're here. This is our first in a series of events, and we hope that our purpose is to make you feel like you're kind of on a journey. So what we're trying to do with the 9 events that we've designed for you tonight is to allow you to delve deep into the themes from our selected book, Red Letter Days. So hopefully you've had a chance to read it. If you haven't, there are a lot of copies at the library and at your favorite bookstores. So grab a copy and get reading. So tonight's event is being sponsored by the Friends of the Capitola Library. Thank you to Tony Campbell and her group for putting this together. I'd also like to let people know, if they don't already, that the Capitola Friends has an incredible bookstore at the Capitola Mall. So be sure and support that if you're looking for secondhand books. We had hoped to show you the film Good Night and Good Luck in person, but we weren't able to find a suitable venue for the number of people who were planning to register for this. So thank you for your understanding and for your flexibility on this event. What we've done is, today we had a drawing based on your registration numbers. Tony put all the numbers in a hat, pulled one out for a DVD of Good Night and Good Luck. And our winner is Janice O'Driscoll. So congratulations, Janice, and we'll be getting in touch with you to get the DVD sent to you. Also, please mark your calendars for our next event, which is this coming Monday, February 8th. We're going to feature an esteemed professor emerita, Ronnie Grun. Some of you may have heard of her. She is a regular lecturer for the Osher Lifelong Learner Institute, and she's extremely popular. Her events always get a great turnout. She's a historian, and she's going to be using her knowledge to set the stage for the McCarthy era, where this book was set. So that brings me to tonight's speaker, who is Brad Kava. He's the current chair of the Department of Journalism at Cabrillo College. He's also the publisher of Growing Up in Santa Cruz. He's an award-winning journalist with over 22 years as a reporter for the Mercury News. He's covered a diverse array of topics ranging from crime to natural disasters to his favorite passion, which is music. We're very happy to have him here with us tonight. Please welcome Brad Kava.
How to get muted. Thank you, Denise. Thanks everybody for coming. And contrary to what was said earlier, I'm not much of a lecturer. What I am is kind of Socratic method. If you have a question, cut me off right away and we'll talk. I'd rather have this be more like a conversation than me just jammering on it to you. But the theme, I mean, it's so scary and motivating right now. I watched the movie when it came out, and then I watched it again now, just today again. And, oh God, one of my favorite people in the world just came in. Anyway, you know, maybe you all said the same thing. It can't happen here. It can't happen now. We're past this. McCarthyism, when I was taught about it, it was a fluke. And we read Arthur Miller, The Crucible, and the witch hunts, and we thought, we've learned, we're never going to do it again. And now here I am, and I feel like we're doing it again. I'm more scared right now at this minute than I was since I watched that man go down the escalator and start putting down Mexicans. And I thought, oh, surely this can't happen. And then I realized it is going to happen. I knew that minute. Everybody thought I was nuts, but I knew that minute he was going to be elected. And it would be the downfall of this country. And I believe we're really on the verge of it happening again. And that scares me. And when I see this movie, I think it really needs to be required. And Red Letter Days, the two work so well together. in that the movie is just like a slice. This is what it was like from the media. But what Red Letter Days is it takes you into the minds and the lives of the people, the actual people, fiction though it may be, who were hunted and who were the, quote, witches. It takes you into the mind of innocent people who were part of an authoritarian, horrendous, off the rails government. And I see the similarities in what's going on today, every day, as I look at Congress, as I watch our government. I kept thinking, as I saw Joseph McCarthy in the movie, man, he looks like Ted Cruz, and he sounds like Ted Cruz too. And in the movie, and this is an amazing thing, George Clooney said when they did the trial screening, 20% of the people they showed it to didn't know who Joe McCarthy was. Now that's scary. And then a bunch of them said, who was that great actor playing Joseph McCarthy? And of course, it was the real footage. Both of those things tell me that as much as we learn, and as smarter as we think we are, we're not. And I'm really scared for that. And I don't know, maybe somebody can tell me, okay, it's only 30% of the population who's extremist. And maybe the other 70% are sane, although maybe it's a 50-50 breakdown, and maybe it's enough of a breakdown in the way that the media presents all of this that we're in big trouble. And so one of the things people were asking me about was, how is the media different now in the 50s? And thank God we've got a few people on here, Andre New, Roland Rebele, who can really talk about this because they were there and they know more than I do. But what are some of the differences? I mean, as I saw this, one thing that wasn't different was that journalism, a lot of it was cowed by these extremists in the government. And they had reason to be. They were the HUAC, House of Un-American Activities Committee. They would ruin your life, ruin your livelihood, just for sport, it seemed like, just for meanness and for their own power and for insanity. And can that happen again? Is it happening again? I think it can, and we're on the verge of it. Just the fact that today Republicans denounced their own people who just want the truth, who just want some constitutional representation and accuracy. What is going on? I mean, maybe you guys can explain it too, and how you feel about this, because frankly, it's I just didn't think it could happen here again, and why are we going for this authoritarian? Why is this happening? And the funny thing is, well, let's go back to the media for 1 second. So back then, 50s, you had 3 major networks, and in the 40s, you had radio, and there was fewer voices. So Edward R. Murrow, he had, huge. What he said was the word. People believed it. They believed Walter Cronkite, who actually parachuted into World War II to present things. It was a different thing. And yet, too, then you had the other side coming out there. Heather Hopper was presenting, her whole thing was busting Hollywood people for allegedly every day it was another scoop of who's a red, who's a pinko. Whoa, how do we get that? And I was thinking, so in the 80s, Ben Bagdikian, a great professor at Berkeley, his fear in the 80s, and he was now looking so wrong, his fear was that only a few companies would own all the media and we would lose our voice. And amazingly, just the opposite happened. We have democratized the media, and yet I'm not sure it's any better. Why? Well, as social media is one thing, number one. Number two, the media is no longer held to the truth. It's not, back in the day, it was a parameter. You had to tell the truth, or at least you had to try to be accurate, fair, balanced, and all of a sudden that's been turned on its head. We see fake news. We see authoritarians calling everything that disagrees with them fake news. And then, let me just show you this for 1 minute. This is like, to me, this is when I woke up. This woke me up. Come on. Oh, what do I do? Share. Here we go. Share. Okay, can you all see this? Do you remember seeing this back in 2001, this picture? Oh, of course, I'm talking to you, but you can't hear. But, or you can't answer. I remember when I first saw this picture, I thought, wow, how did they get that? And you know what? I believed it for a minute, maybe more than a minute, because it was shown on the media, it was in social media, and I assumed, oh my God, Well, that's all of a sudden when I realized people will lie. They'll just lie for the hell of it. They're making up these falsehoods. And at this point, with so many different voices and no accountability for most of them, fake news does dominate what's going on. How do we even get to what's real anymore? Well, let me just stop for 1 second. If anybody has anything to pipe in and add, raise your hand. Let's get going on a conversation. Anybody? Gonna make me talk. Um, the other thing is my favorite moment in the movie. One of them was Joe Welch, the senator. You remember what he said, which was, "Senator, have you no sense of decency? Have you no sense of decency?" And I keep waiting. For the last 5 years, I've waited for somebody to say that about Donald Trump, preferably a Republican. Um, have you no sense of decency? And we have now a man in power or trying to get back into power, and we have people who have followed in his footsteps who claim that the election was fraudulent. And everything we base this country on, which is the value and truth of elections, is being thrown out, And I don't understand why we're putting up with this. Where is the decency? Where is the respect for the Constitution? Where is the respect for our politics? The biggest laugh is he hired a guy to monitor the elections, Trump did. Remember that? He was investigating. And what'd the guy say? It was the most fair election in history. What happened to the guy? He got fired. Now, is this Joseph McCarthy coming back again? And again, some of you guys who are around for McCarthy, am I overstating this? Yeah, Andre, what are you going to say there?
It just seems that it's accepted in much the same way now as it was back then, where if you criticize Trump or widespread Republicans, then you're just reacting. You're a reaction because you're one of those wild-eyed liberals, fanatic. And I think that what most of us who believe that there are Republicans who are honorable and are trying to do the right thing as well, is that it's hard to isolate, to pinpoint it, to say there's a certain kind of thing that's going on that we haven't seen for I don't know how long, maybe back to the Red Scare. And we've forgotten what happened and how easily it happens with someone that gains a certain amount of power, like McCarthy did then, and like he does now. You're afraid to question. You're afraid to criticize. There's a knee-jerk response to whatever your criticism is. Well, you're just a wide-eyed radical liberal. You want to, open up the borders. You want to let everybody in. It's hard. You don't know exactly what to say, and you don't want to be attacked widely and unfairly in return. I think that's partly it.
Yeah, it's a state of fear,
yeah.
And they don't use the word they used back then, which is pinko or red.
Mm-hmm.
But what do they say? I hear it every day. Now listen, unlike many of you, maybe I listened to Rush Limbaugh every day when he was alive. I watch Sean Hannity. I follow all of those people. I have since 1986 because I think we have to watch them. I think they have so much power. And I've watched over the years. I've had some people. I used to write a column on radio for the Mercury News, and I tracked those people because I felt they were going to be dangerous. And at that time, people thought, oh, they're just an aberration. It's a fluke. It's nothing. And now look, they're among the strongest. Fox News. They're the strongest voices in this country. They have no accountability. They're happy to lie. And they're happy to go against everything they stood for before. The Republicans had some honor before, whether it was, feeling that we have to spread democracy, feeling that we have to stop the Soviets and the Russians from stepping over the boundaries. And now it's, and constitutionality and law enforcement. If nothing else, the Republican Party was the party of law and order, right?
Yeah.
And now look, they attacked the Capitol. 700 of them have been arrested. They murdered people. They attacked officers. Everything they stood for once, they're gone. And now they're again claiming that this election is fraudulent. It's like throwing out, but they believe it. And senators, what's, oh my word, I've forgotten his name now. The senator who, and this is back onto vaccines, another topic, who said athletes are dying all the time right now. He just said that the other day. All these athletes are dying. That's made up. It's not true. And they're passing it off as fact. So while they're accusing anybody who prints the truth of putting out fake news, they're the ones reveling in fake news. And I've seen the rallies. I've seen them, and as a few probably, point out the people from CNN and get the audience riled up, at these rallies. Oh, CNN, they're evil. The media, they're evil. It's nothing I thought I'd see in my lifetime. And there's one of my favorite people in the whole world. Reb, tell me something about this. You saw it the first time. Oop, you gotta unmute. Wait a sec. There we go. There you go, Reb.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, you and Andre both. Things were different in the 50s, mainly in terms of the plethora of voices and the reliability of the voices. Yes, we still had McCarthy, we still had Lindbergh during World War II, we still had the naysayers and the people who took the other side. But as far as the media was concerned in the 50s, it was a small bunch, really. There were the three networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS, and there were the daily newspapers, and we all held to a code of trying to seek the truth. That was the goal. And not the truth as you want it to be or as your bias has it being, but the truth, for the truth's sake. Not for anybody else's sake, just the truth's sake. And that's the difference between then and today, I think. We have a plethora of voices. They all have a speaking tube because of what's happened with the internet and how Facebook has been not allowed, but the technology has allowed them to flourish, as well as Twitter and all the others, and there are many voices out there. The Seattle Times is a wonderful newspaper and still is, in my opinion. And I have a son, however, who lives in Seattle, and I say, well, what does the Times have to say? And he said, frankly, Dad, it doesn't make any difference what the Times says anymore. He said, nobody reads the newspaper. Some people do, of course, we all know that. More people read the New York Times than ever right now. But still, as a percentage of the total population, it's a small number. And there are not too many media like the Seattle Times and the New York Times and many other good newspapers that have any readership. So nobody cares anymore, says my son. What happens in Seattle is up to what the what the guy on the street corner has to say, and what every voice has to say, and as a result, there's no voice that's reliable, really. That people are really seeing and reading and paying attention to. So what's the prescription? What's the answer? What should we do? I can't get away from the fact that we still need to educate people, kids particularly, in finding reliable sources for their news. It's so important that we teach reliability. What is reliability? What can you depend upon? What is really true? We can do that, and we need to do it.
Let me throw this out just for those who don't know who was just speaking. That's Roland Rebele, and he was a newspaper publisher through the 50s, right? Starting the 50s?
No, not till after the 50s, 60s.
Okay.
60s.
Okay. But you were around for all of this, and he is a huge inspiration to me and every journalist in this county. He funds journalism at Cabrillo. He's, as a result of his donation, we're putting out all kinds of journalists, and I'd be glad to talk to you about that any other time. But he has done some amazing things, just in terms of helping. I see a hand up, but Reb, let me just ask you one quick question. What were you thinking in the 50s when you watched Joe McCarthy? What was in your mind?
Well, he was an outlier. He was crazy. He was advocating untruthful stuff. He was the Trumper of his times. But because I think because the media, there were so many fewer media, less media, and the media that were there hewed to a code of ethics which said we're into it for speaking the truth and telling things the way they are, and that made the difference. So people could put McCarthy into perspective, and they did ultimately, and he was put down, and he was voted out, and but he was just like Lindbergh wanted to be an isolationist during World War II 10 years earlier, and yet President Roosevelt and the others who were more sensible about world affairs and knew more about world affairs, and the media of the day had their way, and Lindbergh didn't get anywhere with his right-wing isolationist policies. And the same ultimately was true with McCarthy ultimately. But Trump, on the other hand, because of I think really because of all the fact that he can command a media voice that gets to millions of people and convinces them with his lies and untruths, has a microphone that didn't exist back in the 50s. So that's my answer to it, Brad. But it just, it's a democracy if you can keep it. Who was it who said that? We have to be able, it's much tougher to keep the truth foremost these days than it was back in the 50s. It was easier in the 50s because there were more people who sought the truth and insisted upon it, or something very close to the truth, at least a balanced report that was essentially truthful.
But the thing with McCarthy too, we like to sweep it away. We got rid of him. He ruined so many lives, and that's what this book, Red Letter Days, that we read illustrates. It's like lives were down. Julie Olson Edwards, let me take your question.
Yeah, I'm another one of the gray hairs here who lived through the period.
Okay.
And my family was under attack by McCarthy's committee. And I think what you're saying is fundamentally true about the ethics that was supposed to exist around news, and the notion that the news was supposed to be neutral, was supposed to be looking for facts. I think I'm with you on that, but that's not what happened, not until the end. For a long time, any Hearst newspaper, any one of them, which was one of the big newspaper chains, and most of the liberal press jumped on the bandwagon. They were awful during those early years of the McCarthy era. Their advertisers threatened to leave them if they presented news that was in any way even neutral about the damn Reds who were about to bomb the country to death. And so I think your basic point that what has happened, the amount of information coming through to people that is utterly without standards, without any kind of, I'm with you all the way, but I think it's a little romantic to describe the press of the 40s and 50s as a paradigm of neutrality. Some were, and that was certainly the ethics of the field, but it wasn't what happened until late in the McCarthy era. And it didn't close down HUAC. HUAC continued to be very, very active all the way through the 60s and into the 70s. So, okay, I'm done.
No, you're right. Those are good points. And some of that came out in the movie and the book. Particularly I'm thinking of the movie right now. Yeah, that was part of it. Alcoa was the sponsor. Remember that? And they were pulling out. And with that in mind, somebody else, well, you got to salute Bill Paley in one hand. He was losing $100 million a year on the news by presenting news. And what did he say? Jack Benny makes me the money. You know, the news, he was willing to take some risks and put that news out, even though in the movie he was scared as well. Who wouldn't be? Everybody was scared, it looked like. But he took that. Somebody said, and I think it was Jonah Goldberg, the worst thing that ever happened to news was when it became profitable on TV. When it was a public service, which it was originally, it was a money loser, and it was done because who owns the airwaves? We do, the public. The stations lease them from us. And as Paley said in the movie, you're slamming all these people who grant me my license. The government, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? But so I salute him for that. So it was a money loser until kind of the 60s. And then what turned it around? Happy Talk. If you guys from San Francisco, you remember local news was one of the things that turned it around. Hey, this news doesn't have to be boring. It can be fun. 60 Minutes also turned it around. And then once it started making a profit, well, the stations lusted for more money, and that's what they wanted. I'm sure a lot of you remember the airwaves. They were supposed to do public service. To get their license renewed, they had to show they did something for the public good. So what did they do? They would air news shows, important shows, at 6 in the morning. And like in the movie, too. Hey, we're going to move your Sunday evening show to Sunday afternoon, when nobody's watching anyway. But that was the point. They did these important things that they had to do and show the government, the FCC, hey, see, we're presenting public service, all these news shows. And then somebody here was asking, too, about the Fairness Doctrine. And oh, my word, that is another thing. And I'm kind of in the middle on that. But I will say this, the Fairness Doctrine was what brought us Fox News. I mean, the lack of the Fairness Doctrine. The minute they canceled that and the right-wing media took hold and became the main media, so by the Fairness Doctrine, that was if you presented one side of a political argument, you had to present the other side as well, right? And you had to prove, that you're serving both sides of an issue. And in a way, it was a good thing, I think. But maybe Andre, Roland, these people with more experience than me, could say, I don't hear many people lamenting its loss. I feel that they think that like free speech and the media would be responsible, although we're not seeing it. I mean, I guess they figure government is controlling the Fairness Doctrine and determining what's fair. But it was only the loss of the Fairness Doctrine that brought us Fox News. Which Fox News claimed we're fair and balanced. We're here to balance out every other liberal media, and I love how they're always saying the liberal media. Well, listen, I check the media. You have way more conservative media out there, and Fox is the number one news station. Nothing else compares to it.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, I put a lot of blame on Fox because Fox has totally distorted news. They've passed opinion off as news. I make my students, if any of them is here, I require them to watch a movie called Outfoxed. And it's free. You can get it on YouTube for free, Outfoxed. It is brilliant. It takes you behind the scenes of Fox News. It's a great documentary where they're manipulating the news. You can watch them do it firsthand with great evidence. This documentary shows and proves and backs up everything it claims with facts. And again, I would throw that to you. The question about the Fairness Doctrine, what do you think of it? Is that something that we should bring back? Is it manageable? Again, I don't hear many people lamenting its loss, and yet it's changed the media landscape. And I got one more question, Jody Pratt, and we can all answer this. Is there any way of determining which journalists and or publications, online sources tend to be the most fact-based and willing to provide objective opinions, both sides in today's environment? I mean, I would argue, I think, and again, as Reb said, I read the New York Times every day. I read the Washington Post every day. I read the LA Times every day. I read Business Insider, and then, probably 10 other things. I try to get all perspectives. Like I said, I listen to Rush Limbaugh. I listen to all of that stuff. And, everything has a slant, but I think if you put them all together, you can at least come out with some information, uh, enough to actually make a determination. I mean, my favorite is the New York Times, Washington Post. I feel like I'm getting good information there. And on TV, I wander. I like CNN. I like, but the one negative I have is, like Fox, it's half of what you see are talking heads arguing back and forth, and I want news. And because of the way they spend the money on the news, it all has to be pictorial. You're not getting a lot of politics. I tell my students too to watch. Oh God, why am I blanking on the name? The one that shows Congress all day long. C-SPAN. C-SPAN, sorry. Yeah, no, you want the news, watch C-SPAN. You're going to get something accurate and true and boring as hell if you're not interested. But it's important, and that's a place you're going to get some facts. But we've made it entertainment. News has had to become entertainment to make money. Once it started making money and started becoming the big money maker on a lot of these stations, that they've spiced it up with entertainment. If you watch out Fox, you'll see how they came up with these graphics and important news flash, Bennifer, Ben and Jennifer Lopez or whatever, things like that. Everything is yelling at you. And here's the craziest thing in today is Putin and the Russians. I hear these right-wing people blaming Biden for being too hard on Putin. What? And how Ronald Reagan was so great. Ronald Reagan's spinning in his grave right now, especially when he hears Trump speaking about his buddy Putin. And when you watch, and I watch RT, the Russian television network, and they love Trump. They want to bring him back. He's a friend of Russia, and that scares the hell out of me.
What do you think about the NPR and the public news hour on PBS?
Oh yeah, of course I love them. I mean, I'm liberal. I like NPR, but I feel like they can be objective. I feel they're a good news source, and I watch the BBC too, and I listen to the BBC again to get and Al Jazeera. I watch Al Jazeera. I have to get. I mean, I'm a news junkie. I don't know that everybody has the time to do that, but and I, it's my job. But how else? I can no longer trust any one source completely. Although if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with the New York Times. But that's
yeah.
Anybody else thoughts on that? Where do you go to? Where should I be? I'm glad you brought up NPR and PBS. And they have amazingly high ratings out here in the Bay Area. Both of them. They're not on the Arbitron system, and yet they have tremendous ratings if they were. When they break out, you see that they do. So I just wonder, and I like what Reb said, which is that we have to educate people. Now, talk about that. When I was in 5th grade, I was required to subscribe to the New York Times and read it every day. And I'll tell you the truth, it was like hieroglyphics to me in a lot of ways because I was in 5th grade. But Mrs. Caffey at Ward School made us read it every day. In the first half hour of every class, we had to pick out articles and talk about them. I have students now, I meet college students who've never cracked open a newspaper, and that's scary. And yet you can learn so much from them, and I did learn a lot that's probably what shaped my life. That 5th grade, I had to subscribe to the New York Times. And how can we get students to do that now? And we're working on that at Cabrillo. Andre started the program. There was one of the people, and I work on it, and Reb funds it. And I'm getting great students who are coming around, but man, I wish I had 1 million of them, And I wish we could really get that word out. I mean, just the idea of requiring the New York Times. The New York Times will give it to students virtually free if a teacher subscribes and gets them to. But many of them it's not in there. They weren't brought up with it anymore. And I don't know how to get them. Like Reb's son said, nobody cares about the paper. And I fear, okay, so the New York Times, 10 million people read it now. Was that the number I just saw? 10 million? But that's like, 1 penny compared to who's watching Fox. And Yeah.
True.
Any other thoughts? Come on, everybody, talk, talk, talk. This is what else do I have? I have other notes here if I need be. Oh yeah, I tell you this, you know, George Clooney, if you do some research in this movie. Rev, did you see this? Good night and good luck.
Yes, of course.
Oh, you know, yeah. Well, I didn't know this until I was researching for this. So George Clooney, God bless this man, he couldn't get insurance for the movie. So he mortgaged his house to pay for the movie. He paid 14 million bucks for the movie. He also got Mark Cuban to chip in, and the then CEO of, was it maybe Amazon, but it's not Bezos. Maybe Google. Anyway, he got other people to chip in 14 million bucks. It grossed $54 million. But this man, Clooney, felt this was so important. I didn't know this either. His father was a TV broadcaster. He was a news guy, local news guy. I didn't know that. And his aunt, of course, is Rosemary Clooney. But I could see that passion in the movie, that this was something he really believed in. And look at the stars who participated in it too. I mean, everything about it was great. It was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, and it was celebrated worldwide. There's a great lesson in that movie. Oh, and I said, you know, I studied with Fred Friendly, Rev. At Berkeley at Bolt Hall. I took the media law with Fred Friendly. So he's in the movie. That's who Clooney plays. And I only wish I could go back in time and say to Fred, hey, Fred, someday George Clooney is going to play you in a movie, you know, because it was the most unlikely thing. And Clooney was great as Friendly. And Friendly was a great guy, but he did not look like George Clooney. He was like, he was an elfin kind of guy, just a crack up. But anyway, not everyone can spend hours reading and resources. Here's a question, Jody Pat. Different sources for truth. Do you have an opinion about the media bias chart in programs produced by ad fonts? Okay, here's something I don't even know about. Does somebody know about this? The media bias chart? I think I've seen it, but I don't know much about it. Oh yeah, you know what? I did see that and what they were respecting, but I don't remember. Jody, can you clue us into that a little more? Yeah. Anybody know about this media bias chart? What was the
Yes,
intent? Yeah.
I do. This is something that's come up recently, just over the last, maybe 10 years max. But it was a lawyer and somebody who was amazing at calculations, and she wanted to find some way to identify reliable sources. And so she created the theory that you can look at various things within articles that you read and determine the reliability of the information, and also whether or not there's a right or left bias in it. And she, after a couple of years of doing this sort of undercover as a passion item, she finally did incorporate. She's working with media literacy groups, and it's really starting to grow. And if you go to advantes.com, you'll be able to see a copy. There is a copy of the bias chart that they put together that is available for free to just look at. And then, of course, there are services if you want to be able to use the chart by yourself. But I think there are maybe a couple other organizations that are looking to do that. And I just wondered how you felt about the way they approach how they make their decisions. So they produce a chart, and it shows on the chart which those that are the most reliable in the information that they use, and used is the closest to the source, is higher on the chart, and the least biased are centered on the chart. It's really fascinating.
I need to see that and do some research on it. You've got me stumped on that, but surely I need it. Andre,
Happy to get it to you. Pardon?
No, I was asking Andre if he knew. No, he's also a journalist and journalist.
No, I hadn't heard of it. I'm not surprised there is such a thing, but I haven't heard of it.
Well, I will look into that. Thank you. I mean, that's the beauty of teaching anything, right? That the students and people listening often know more than you do. I consider a
Always.
classroom a community. You know, it's not a teacher lecturing. That would be boring. It's a community, and thank you for that. And yeah, Jody, put up the link. We'll get into that, and I would love to analyze it. And I'm not familiar, Denise, of the factual. No, I don't know that either. And Irene, what's the incentive for people to point a figure at someone with no actual ties to the Communist Party? I mean, that's the question of all things. And we see it. We saw it in the book. We saw it, A, they might want their job. B, it raises their perspective. It raises their... It's like the witch hunts. What made people claim that women were witches? What made them kill women for supposedly being witches? It's an important part of our history. We did this. Why? Why? It's just some evil thing in human nature, maybe. Power? I mean, what would make these Republicans today tell me, one minute they said Donald Trump is a hideous person, and after he talked about grabbing women's organs, they would never support him, then they all came back into the fold. What makes somebody like that guy from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, what makes him say Donald Trump is a horrible racist, horrible person? Now he's my good friend because I golf with him. What makes Ted Cruz, after he's insulted his father and his wife, go back to... I keep thinking he must have blackmail items on all these people because I can't imagine what would do it. And the same thing goes for what would make somebody claim somebody's a communist. What do you think? I mean, you know as much as I do in this. It's disgraceful, disgusting, hideous, scary, and I don't... It's the worst of human nature. And unfortunately, it's happened, and it's still happening. But listen, what's the number one thing they say about Joe Biden right now? I see it every day, hundreds of times. He's a socialist. He's a socialist. Oh my word. I mean, why would you say that? I mean, I wish he were a socialist. We'd have health care, but we don't. I wish, I mean, we're all socialists. We have free schools. We have free fire departments. We have free police departments. Maybe the health care. Come on, we're the only civilized, first world country that doesn't have it. Why don't we have health care? If we were socialist, we would, or at least a little more socialist, but we don't. And it's still a capitalist country in every way, predominantly. We depend on people like Roland Rebeley to help us. But, right, compassionate people. Anyone else? Let me think. You want to talk about the book, the movie? I'm into all of it. I was brought up on All the President's Men. I started my journalism allegiance, fifth grade, that was earlier. But by All the President's Men, I was in high school. I watched those hearings, and I saw journalists as these great heroes. They brought down a corrupt president, and I thought, how amazing is that these two little guys could do so much. And I thought for a while we had this great renaissance of journalism. We really did for a bunch of years. We had great magazines, great TV shows, great investigative reporting. And we still have it, but it's being overwhelmed by this plethora of non-truth. I don't know about you guys. I look at my Facebook. The thing I get the most on Facebook right now is this Canadian trucker strike. Have you seen this? I don't know why. No, I get 50 things on it a day, and I hate it. So the Canadian truckers are driving to Ottawa to protest vaccines. And my only response is, if you're against vaccines, when you get COVID, are you going to go to a doctor? I mean, should a doctor? And they're saying we're saving your freedom. Oh my God, here's a great question. Can you compare William Paley and Rupert Murdoch? Bill Paley believed in the truth. He was willing to lose $100 million a year to bring out some kind of truth and stand up to the government, even though he was scared. Rupert Murdoch, I will never understand this guy. you know, he owns some great properties, the Wall Street Journal, National Geographic. Actually, he owns so many things. And yet, how can he look at himself in the mirror having Fox News and letting Fox News be what it is? And I don't even, you shouldn't even call it Fox News. In Canada, they won't give it the status of news. It's entertainment. They don't count it as news. And I suspect we should do that. And of course, these guys, when you talk to them, Sean Hannity, oh, I'm a journalist, you know, protect my privacy and my rights. Then the next minute, I'm not a journalist, I'm an opinion guy. Where those two things, how do you separate them? And in the old days, this is one thing they did. I think they separated news from opinion. They really made a point of that. And while, you know, you can never escape opinion entirely, this is what I do. How do I make my students fact check their stories? They have to count the paragraphs. If they have a story with multiple sides, they have to count the paragraphs. And I demand that they have, or at least I suggest, that they have equal number of paragraphs for each side. That way I know they're presenting it fairly. But now here's the other thing about that. So if somebody says the earth is flat and somebody says it's round, do they have to have equal time for both those people? Or as the great meme I see says, if one side says it's raining and the other says it's not, my job isn't to present both sides. My job is to go outside and see if it's raining. So, you know, these lines are a little skewed, and I try to teach it all, but the I love this. Power and greed seem to be that's exactly true, our politicians' motivation. I never thought, I used to really believe, and maybe some of you guys, I used to believe people went into politics to help society. I did. I really believe that in a lot of cases, and I think it's true in some cases. But what I'm seeing now is not that. They're not here to help. A lot of them, they're not here to help people, and we're in trouble as a result of it. Anymore, I love this conversational part of this. I'm not a great lecturer, but I'm a good conversational stimulus. I'm a journalist. I ask questions, right? That's what I do, and I let other people give the answers. I'm not. Moss, the book, the movie. Anybody else? I mean, did anybody else freak out from day one when Trump declared he was going to run for president by saying Mexico's not sending us our best? They're sending us rapists and drug dealers, and maybe some of them are okay, or I'm misquoting there. But that minute, I knew our society was on the downturn, and I thought that alone would sink him. Didn't. Only boosted him. And that's the scary thing. Then when he said both sides have good people about Charlottesville, both sides. There's good people in both sides. We're talking about the KKK, good people. Yeah. I mean, why? None of these things. This guy is Teflon. He's the true Teflon. And he's, to me, the true definition of an authoritarian dictator. And, I'm not, you can't, I do, and you're not supposed to ever bring up Hitler, but I see this. Oh, and one other thing. Oh, I forgot this. This is so important. Who was Joseph McCarthy's main advisor? Anybody?
And Nixon.
No. Joseph McCarthy, though, his main advisor was Roy Cohn.
Yeah, Roy Cohn, that straight, never looked at another man.
Right.
Yes.
And on the other side of that, who was educated Donald Trump in politics? Roy Cohn.
Roy Cohn, yeah.
So we do have a direct link between what happened then in the 50s and what's happening now, right there. And that alone would make thinking people think otherwise. But that is the trouble. I'm not sure how many thinking people we have anymore. Or at least that's what's scary. I mean, and it's not just us either. It's happening around the world. France was working for a while with some real right-wing people. Austria is filled with them right now.
Well, what Cohn did that was so clever is as a man who's a homosexual, he attacked homosexuals. He attacked gays, and he was getting them out of the military, out of politics, and everything. That fighting for it. and it was a whole cover up himself. It was just amazing he got away with it as long as he did, and survived by it. I don't. More I don't know. The more I find out about politics and people in it, the more despairing I become. So it's sort of hard.
Me too. And I will remember. I thought that I cried the day Barack Obama was elected, and to tell
Oh
you,
yeah,
I cried almost every time I heard him speak because I thought I'm hearing a statesman like Lincoln and like the founding. I'm hearing a man who really is eloquent and thoughtful and caring and compassionate and just a beautiful speaker. And literally, he would make me cry. I mean, he was so great. And then what do we go? We go from that to a guy who can't string together a sentence. It's like that's so scary. And I got really hopeful under Obama, and then come to find out that his being stirred up a right-wing, reactionary, extremist crowd. That's the worst thing we've seen in this country in a long time since McCarthy. Irene asks to everybody, how long did the events portrayed in the movie actually take to play out on CBS? The movie makes it look like just a handful of shows. And it really was, in a way, just a handful of shows, wasn't it? They didn't hammer it that much, although they reported. Am I wrong?
I don't know how big a period of time the movie covers. That's why, because it compresses the things so it can tell a compelling story. I don't know. I don't know how it really worked out in real time.
I got to throw this out. There were two hilarious moments in the movie. Do you remember that? Number one was the ad for Kent cigarettes. While all these guys are constantly smoking and drinking, and then there's this ad for Kent cigarettes that says, not everybody knows the truth, but you're watching this show, so you know the truth. And the truth is that Kent cigarettes have the best filters and the best tobacco taste. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, Clooney, it was hilarious for putting that in. And then the other one, and this was a true thing, he talks to Liberace in his show, and he's talking to Lee or Les, and he's, how come you're not married? He says to Liberace. And Liberace's like, well, I just haven't found the right person. And then he talks about this princess with Princess Margaret, and she's looking for the right man, and I'm doing the same thing, which I think was like, he was playing with the world at that moment, but it was so funny. I mean, he was not gay in anybody's mind. In that TV show, you wouldn't say that, but those two things, they were real, they happened, and I think they were funny. That was something that Clooney really picked up on and got out there. Anything else? Come on, somebody. The book, I mean, that book is making me bite my nails. It's just so, Arthur Miller, The Crucible. And then what I love in the book too is the TV show she's making, Robin Hood.
Robin Hood, yeah.
Now I remember when I was growing up, Robin Hood, when I was a kid, that was a big deal. But it was so smart on their part to do Robin Hood, who is exactly the opposite of these robber barons that were running the show. And a true socialist and Democrat, Robin Hood, take from the rich, give to the poor. That was his thing. And they made a hit TV show out of Robin Hood. I love that.
I think the best part about the book is that it showed you how widespread, how they would track you down to go to England to get a hold of it, and people couldn't run away. There's just one person, would put that name in, and then you'd be hounded, and you'd lose your job, lose your career. Yeah, and the book did it because you started sympathizing and you almost relaxed, thinking she was going to continue to be successful, and that a phone call with nobody on the other end of the line. It was nice. It was very subtle. It was cinematic. The book was cinematic.
It was. I thought that should have been a movie. I kept thinking they should make that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? How we doing, Denise? Oh, we should wrap up in a few. And this went quickly. Thank you all so much for coming. Thanks to the Friends of the Libraries. Read the book if you haven't. Red Letter Days. It's It'll make you bite your nails and cringe. Um, um, and see the movie too. It's I'm going to make my students watch it.
Good.
The one thing about the movie that was different, it didn't explain a lot. It just kind of throw you out there. You have to figure a lot out yourself. And they don't. So many other movies aren't that intelligent. You know, they don't require you to put something into it. But in this case, you really had to do some research, I think, and just to understand what was going on. They didn't. It wasn't that explanatory, but it was like a slice of life, almost like a few weeks or months in the history of CBS. It didn't really go from point A to point C. But I thought it was great. Great that it was in black and white too. I guess they shot it originally in color and tamped it down to black and white to be more.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
Thanks, Brad.
thank you guys all. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Denise, friends of the library. Anything else? Denise,
Thank you.
tell us what's coming up in the next events.
Well, the next event is the one with Ronnie Grun on Monday, so I hope people will tune in for that. And after that, we have an art workshop. Anyway, you can go to the Friends of the Aptos Library website or the Santa Cruz Public Library website and see our full calendar. And I just want to thank you so much, Brad, for all of your insight. And thank you to Rowan Rammer for running the program tonight. She's
Thank you,
a pro.
Rowan. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Rowan.
And hope to see you guys on Monday.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thanks.